The topic of the panel is entrepreneurship and small and medium-sized enterprises and how we can all either help them grow and invest in them. And this is, in my opinion, an extremely interesting topic. We heard today great speakers discussing energy, banking, real estate. But as we all know, the backbone of any single economy in the world are the small and medium-sized enterprises. I'm Takis Solomos. I'm a Greek national and a Greek citizen. And today, as a Greek national, I am very proud about how my compatriots are developing in Cyprus. And as a citizen of Greece, I envy the government and the progress that we have witnessed today. And I'm really happy about these developments. I'm a partner with a group called First Athens. We do investment banking and private equity. Have offices in Athens, in Bucharest, and in New York City. And today I'm here in order to underline the importance of the SMEs, and I'm really happy that we have this esteemed panelists to analyze the situation in Cyprus. First of all, allow me just to provide a small, let's say, a small, what's an SME in terms of size. I mean, per the European Commission, an SME in Europe is a company that has less than 250 employees, less than 50 million in turnover, and less than 43 million in balance sheet. And of course, for a country like Cyprus, this is not really a small company. And in fact, 99.9% of all companies in Cyprus are classified as SMEs. And actually, 95% of all companies in Cyprus have less than 10 employees. So I'm sure you all understand the importance of the SME sector in growing an economy like the Cyprus one. I would like to ask our esteemed panelists for 1 minute, if they would like to present themselves and a little bit about who they represent today. Please.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stelios Himonas. I'm the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Energy, Commerce, Industry and Tourism, a broad portfolio. Our portfolio includes, among all the things in the title, also innovation and entrepreneurship. And in this session, I will try to explain to you what we are doing in this regard, our policies, incentives we give to innovative SMEs and startups, available financing facility from the point of view of the government, and also, I guess, other panelists who are providing funds for Cyprus SMEs as well. We'll talk about financing opportunities as well. And if we have time also, I would like to highlight some opportunities for investment, of course, within the competence of my ministry. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Small. I'm the North American representative of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. This is an international financial institution that was formed following the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1991. We're owned by 65 countries and 2 intergovernmental agencies, EIB and EU. And I can hear you wondering, why Cyprus? Cyprus became a recipient country in 2014 following the crisis. EBRD is there for a very narrow scope and short time. We have undertaken to assist until 2020 and to not do any new operations between then. We have many players in Cyprus. We have EIB, we have the EU, and so we are looking to complement what they're doing, and a very strong focus of what we're doing will be on the SME sector. And we'll talk a little bit, I guess, later on what we do, but as a short synopsis, I hope in under a minute of what we do.
Thank you. I'm Dov Ehrman. I am a founder and the chairman of a company, PointRF Systems. We are healthcare information technology for the long-term care primarily focused in selling our products in the United States. We're based in Cyprus, and we have a subsidiary in Israel as well as in New York. About 3 or 4 years ago, we had an opportunity. I started the business alongside other businesses I had in China and Hong Kong. Following an initial proof of concept, we went to KPMG, our advisors, to do a study, and they came back and they said, we should definitely relocate from Hong Kong, and they gave us 4 options, and number 1 on the list was Cyprus, and I said, where is Cyprus? And I live in Jerusalem. I didn't know where Cyprus was. It's a 35-minute flight from Tel Aviv. 3, 4 years later, it's been very rewarding for us, and I'm sure we're going to cover more of that later.
I'm Evangelos Antonaros. I'm the senior advisor of the European Investment Bank, the Bank of the European Union, as we call ourselves. So I'm the senior advisor to the president of the bank for Greece and Cyprus. Cyprus is one, I would say, success story for us. We have been active in Cyprus for over 30 years, long before Cyprus became a full member of the European Union. But we have been assisting Cyprus in an increased way and with enhanced tools, partly developed for a country in crisis, as Cyprus has been until recently. And we are very happy to see that the tools and mechanisms we are agreeing with the Cyprus banking system, they are being absorbed so easily, and we are always on the look for new measures, additional measures, and this is the reason why I'm visiting Cyprus very often, and our president, Mr. Hoyer, he was there 9 days ago for the last time, and we visited both promoters, and of course we had a very long discussion, among others, with President Anastasiadis.
Thank you. I'm sure you will appreciate how lucky we are today, because we have a representative of the government, we have an entrepreneur that has moved actually his business in Cyprus, and he is directing a global business out of the island. And of course we have 2 representatives of the major international finance institutions that have as a mandate to fund SMEs in the country. I would like to start asking Mr. Himonas about, Mr. Himonas, what is the actual policy nowadays of the government of Cyprus about improving and enhancing entrepreneurship and promoting the interests of the SMEs in the island?
Yes. Well, after the 2013 crisis, the government has adopted a new growth, an overall growth strategy, and a focus area of that strategy is entrepreneurship and innovation. So we did come up with a very concrete action plan, which was approved by the Council of Ministers in December of 2015. It consists of 75 actions. Of course, it's a dynamic document, and where we had our first review towards the end of 2016, and we beefed it up with another 14 actions. And the main objective of this is to create a sustainable ecosystem. And as it was discussed in the previous panel, a major focus area of this action plan, actually the first pillar, is to create an entrepreneurial culture within Cyprus. And we are starting from our schools in doing that. The Ministry of Education is introducing entrepreneurial courses in the educational curriculum. We are also introducing coding and experimentation, more focus on that. and some words were told in the previous panel about this, so that students develop, analytical and critical thinking. The second pillar is to create a favorable business environment and promote innovation. This includes actions to simplify and re-engineer processes. It was mentioned before that over-regulation shouldn't be an impediment to growth. What we are trying to do is exactly the opposite, cut down on procedures. We are also looking to enhance digital services and e-government. We provide tax incentives and other kinds of incentives. We are upgrading and revitalizing our one-stop shop to assist companies in operating in Cyprus. We are also developing support structures, and I'm referring to a technology transfer center, which is being formed by the Research Promotion Agency of Cyprus. And finally, together with EBRD, we are working on a plan. We are about to sign an agreement to provide mentoring and counseling services to our SMEs. The third pillar of our action plan is to provide access to finance. We do have the support schemes by the government through mainly the EU structural funds. We are working to create a co-investment mechanism to provide risk capital to innovative SMEs, and also in cooperation with mainly the EBRD and the EIB, we are designing financial instruments to provide capital to the market, of course, in cooperation with our local banks. And our last pillar is facilitate access to markets, and here the emphasis is on foreign markets to encourage exports. We've created at the Ministry an export help desk, which helps our businesses export their products. We are evaluating now, we are launching a study, the functioning of our trade centers. We do have 11 of them. Some of them operate in many, many countries. So we want to optimize their functioning. And also with the EBRD, we've established the mentoring facility I mentioned before. One of the eligible areas is provide advice with regard to export and export markets and export techniques. And last but not least, we would like to promote e-commerce.
Right.
We did have a study. We finished a study last month. We were able, I think, to identify the e-commerce potential of Cyprus, and we are now designing a support scheme which will launch later in the year to promote e-commerce. And overall, the implementation is going quite well. We did implement about 40% of the actions. Another 45% are in progress, and the remaining 15% are starting. So this is what we are doing.
All right.
Thank you.
I would like to ask Mr. Ehrman now, I mean, from the perspective of the entrepreneur and, let's say, an investor in the island, what are the practical advantages of running an international practically company out of Cyprus? I mean, can you highlight your experience to us?
So for us, it's quite, like I said earlier, it's been quite rewarding. We find being sensitive to sounding redundant. A lot of the things, I'm going to just repeat what was said earlier, is we're finding the highly educated talent pool. We're finding very high work ethics in Cyprus. The proximity to talent, if you can't find enough, like in our particular case, we have Cypriot engineers in Cyprus working for us. We have former Eastern European from Russia and from Ukraine. And we have Israelis that have relocated or that commute on a regular basis. As I said earlier, it's a 35-minute flight. So these are the main, there's saying that if you want to build a startup, we're a high-tech, we consider ourselves a high-tech startup. If you really want to do it right, you're either going to be in the Bay Area of San Francisco or you're going to be in Tel Aviv. And if you can't afford it, then don't do it. We are, thankfully, we have a subsidiary in Israel, so to cover for what we can't find in Cyprus, but we're very happy with the 17 people working for us in Cyprus, highly talented, and been producing beyond expectations.
On a pragmatic basis, have you taken advantage on any particular incentives in order to relocate to the island and take advantage of some mechanisms organized by the government in order to proceed to that direction?
So one of the catalysts for us relocating from Hong Kong, obviously, was the tax incentives and the specific tax treaty, IP-based tax treaty with the United States. That has been very attractive for us. So that has been the basis for us to consider it. And as I said, we went, cautiously, we relocated, and now 3 years later. So that was one of the main incentives. We're happy to see that over the years, work permits for foreigners those talent that we can't find locally has been eased. So we're finding it easier today. We need to see that continue, but we're seeing that that's been easier, yes, those incentives.
Right, thank you. Mrs. Moll, could I ask you about the current activities of the EBRD in Cyprus?
Yes. When we looked at entering, or when the country became a recipient country of the bank, we looked at where we would best be placed to assist. As I said, given that we already have EIB, EU, and you don't want to overburden a country with lots of us with the acronyms in our names beginning with E. So we saw that looking at the SME space was particularly interesting to us. And we looked at it in two ways. One, the banking sector has to be strong enough to be able to provide finance. And secondly, you have to increase the capability of the small companies to be able to receive finance and grow. So on one hand, we are looking to provide direct finance, well, not direct, but credit lines to Greek banks to on-lend to SMEs. And when we do that, we are paying particular mind to be complementary to the EIB group's activities in that sector and how they look at the financial sector. But secondly, we have a very strong advice for small business program. And that program is, as it says, it's advice. So we provide help with the know-how to help the businesses grow, to help them to be able to become better at accessing finance, so educating them on how to apply for loans. And we're talking about very small companies, and these, I think, are the bread and butter of the economy.
Right.
Looking forward, we want to build the consultancy space so that this advice would stay and remain after we have gone and left the company. So far, we have advised 50 companies in agribusiness, manufacturing, and property and tourism sectors. We are working closely with the Ministry of Economy so that we can help with the NPL sector, but in doing so, we will provide training for insolvency practitioners. We have the funding in place and the terms of reference in place, and we are hoping to sign that soon. And we also are we have so far been funding this ASB program through use of our shareholders' funds. And the shareholders' funds are the profits made over the years in the bank. We have put a small portion aside to actually fund these types of programs. We are now, again, in discussion with our friends from the ministry, looking to fund this program going forward between 2017 and 2020 using EU structural funds. So again, we're hoping to sign that at our annual meeting, which will be in Cyprus in May. All in all, we are trying to partner well with the other MBDs, not overlap, because again, as I said, we think overlapping is not a good thing for a small country, and we should be additional in what we do and not
right.
burdensome.
I mean, you are only for a small time in the country. I do believe that you are only for the last couple of years present.
Yes,
you have presence there, but
yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a significant effort
Yeah.
that the bank is providing to the economy.
We've so far invested 200 million in that year. We've taken equity in the two largest private banks, and I think that was part of the program to shore up the banking system, to allow this further investment into the SMEs.
I would like now to ask Mr. Antonaros about the European Investment Bank and what are the current developments in their operations in Cyprus.
You see, we have been active in Cyprus, as I mentioned before, I think, for the last 30 years or so. So Cyprus is a country very well known to us. We have an exposure to Cyprus which amounts to some 15% of the Cyprus GDP. It is 2.5 billion euro throughout this very long cooperation. This cooperation used to consist only of one leg, of one pillar, until 3 years ago, and this was exclusively the support of infrastructure and public works projects. Us being the biggest multilateral bank in the world, we are able to support the strive of the Cyprus economy to get very up-to-date infrastructure. But as of 2014, and until then, our cooperations with the local banks were practically zero. As of 2014, we have developed with a very quick pace, I would say, the so-called multi-beneficiary intermediate lending through local banks. And this is extremely important for Cyprus for two reasons. First, because some 80 to 85% of the Cypriot companies are so-called SMEs, very small, the majority of them very small companies, and therefore, this is the second reason, these companies cannot benefit from our direct lending programs because there are very high thresholds. It's usually they are. This is 25 million euro. In some cases, for instance, in Greece, it can be reduced to 15 million, but still, these are high amounts for the average Cypriot company. And for this reason, we have developed this kind of tools, for which I'm going to give you, if I have 1 minute more, I'm going to give you some figures first. Let me tell you that at the last visit of our top delegation with President Hoyer in December last year, 2 or 3 days before Christmas, we had allocated some 190 million euro to 200 companies of that size. When we came back to Cyprus early last week, these numbers had increased by 20% as far as the number of the companies are concerned, from 200 to 240, and the allocations had gone from 190 to 220 million. It shows, and we can confirm it very easily, that the programs that we have signed with 10 out of 12 local banks, amounting to 615 million euro, they are absorbed at a very quick pace. So we are very happy with the way this kind of cooperation is going ahead. This is a very important lifeline for the Cypriot economy, and we are firmly committed to continuing this kind of cooperation with relevant ministries, because of course we work closely together as far as the framework and things like this are concerned with the ministries. But at the same time, I must stress that we have a very close cooperation for very important infrastructure works. For instance, we are financing the building of the so-called second construction phase of the University of Cyprus, including the engineering school and the medical school, as well as the extension and the modernization of other facilities at the university. But at the same time, we are involved in sewage works at the Vasilikos project. We're working together with the municipality of Nicosia for the regeneration of the city. So there is a very big, for such a small country, obviously, a very big palette of works in which we are involved.
Mr. Himonas, obviously the IFIs are providing a lot of effort and a lot of, let's say, financing in order to enhance SMEs and help the economy grow. Are there any other mechanisms that the government is utilizing in order to enhance growth and SME, let's say, advancement?
Yes. With regard to financing, the government is providing direct grants in addition to those financial instruments to SMEs. We mainly use the EU structural funds during this budget period, meaning from 2014 until 2020. Our ministry will provide to the market about 150 million, and they are provided through different support schemes. And allow me to mention a few. First of all, I want to mention innovation. During this period, we'll provide about 30 million. And to understand the emphasis we are placing on innovation, there was an increase of over 8 times since the last programmatic budget period of 2007 until 2013, where we had allocated only 3 million. Now we are at 30. So, 4 million. Now we are at 30. We are also enhancing the program by adding schemes to promote, as I said before, e-commerce and cloud services. And in the future, we have in mind to come out with support schemes for collaborative platforms. We are also providing grants in the manufacturing sector, in promoting women and youth entrepreneurship. We have a scheme for upgrading of manufacturing and trading units of agricultural products. And last but not least, improving the energy efficiency of buildings. And we also have a renewables program where we are providing grants to the needy to install their own photovoltaics. And here I want to mention that EBRD is very active in that regard. They've recently financed 5 projects, I believe, in the order of about 10 million. And we also have the FC facility, the so-called Juncker plan. And we've had a program. Now it was the first one in Cyprus between the EIF and RCB Bank for 10 million to start this process and provide some kind of risk capital to innovative SMEs.
Right.
So in addition to those financial instruments, the government has
I mean,
some of its
it's
own,
very
mainly
obvious that
through direct grants.
the supply of capital is growing to the economy, and this is great news. But I would like to ask Mr. Ehrman from the other side. I mean, do you see that in the actual economy? I mean, have you tried to raise capital locally? I mean, do you feel that in case there is a need to raise capital, the country on its own can supply the kind of capital that a company like yours would need in order to grow even further?
So we're actually actively involved in raising round B. It's challenging. We have been successful. The results are mixed. Those that are familiar with Cyprus and have heard of Cyprus are not deterred and are ready to listen. The problem is when you make your pitch, because there's so many companies pitching to the private equity firms and to those potential investors, you basically have 1 minute or 2 minutes to grasp their attention. And when you start out with Cyprus, sometimes they don't give you the time. So it's challenging. We have been successful. We have raised from personal funds and from a private equity firm in Switzerland, our first round. And so the short answer is it's challenging, and I think that the government needs to, I think, work a little to improve the image.
It seems though that locally now there is capital. I mean, EIB, for example.
I'm hearing.
I mean, 15 million. I'm sure that you can use 15 million
suggesting
in
PointRF. Hearing a lot of.
We're open to suggestions and ideas. I mean, we're discussing.
Your neighbor might write you a check.
It would be great if we can close the deal today, gentlemen. I mean, I'm sure this is the only panel that will have a transaction, actually. Could I have
That's not your name, though.
Exactly.
We only have 2.5 minutes, so I would like to ask you if what are the areas that you feel that there is investment opportunity in Cyprus, in the SME region. I mean, we heard about the banking, we heard about the real estate, we have heard about the energy, but in the SME range, I mean, what are the areas that we are looking for investment, for interesting investment opportunities in the?
Asking me?
Please.
Yeah. Look. When we're talking about SMEs, it's a very, as I said before, it's a very big variety of companies which are profiting from this kind of operations. We are working with the local banks, and I can tell you that, for instance, very recently we financed, or we co-financed the extension of Zorba's bakery, which
right.
is the biggest bakery chain of bakeries in Cyprus.
And I think they have a location here in New York City.
Yes, I'm told that they recently opened a bakery here in New York. I'm going to mention some names of companies which we have already concluded agreements, like Liathon Tourist Enterprises, a couple of restaurants, one pharmacy even, the Mattheos coaches, Kapnos buses, which are taking people to and from major cities to Larnaca and Paphos airports. But at the same time, there is something else I would like to mention. I was told by our Cyprus exports loan officers recently, and actually we posted one relevant story on our intranet and our internet presence about a small mountain village called Agros in the Troodos mountain, where we have, through the banks, of course, through the local banks, we submitted very small loans. It could be almost called microfinance of 30, 50, 80,000 euro to local companies run by villagers, inhabitants of these villages, who are producing from local sweets to local embroidery, things like this. And these people, they couldn't get, in these times of crisis and liquidity crunch, they couldn't get any money from anybody else. So through the banks, we provided to these three companies which are mentioned in our story, and with the necessary money to keep their operation going. And we have advised them as well, and we have an excellent advisory department, which is helping them also to overcome problems, to organize better distribution, things like this. And I mentioned the fact that we posted this story on the internet for a very simple reason, because it is accessible to other similar interested parties, which can find out that we are not only supporting, let's say, the University of Cyprus with 162 million for the engineering school or the medical school. We are at the same time are paying special importance on supporting through these intermediate programs and local entrepreneurs who have been threatened by the crisis and have viable companies and can survive and can grow. And for us, it is very important. This is our contribution as the Bank of the European Union to support these parts of the economy. Right. At the same time, let me say just one word. We're developing also different tools which are not 100% mature at the moment, but they are at a very advanced stage concerning tourism and shipping. And very soon, we're going to disclose and open this kind of possibilities. And I'm confident that at the upcoming, I hope in 2 months' time, next visit of our president to Cyprus, we are going to disclose and confirm and sign new agreements of interesting projects which are in the pipeline, and you understand that at the moment I'm not at liberty to divulge.
Mr. Himonas, would you like to underline from the government perspective what are the areas that you feel that opportunities for investment exist in the SME sector?
Well, yes, very, very quickly.
Please.
I think a lot has been said. I just want to identify, so to speak, an area which has not received much attention during today's deliberations. We had a whole session on energy, and we talked a lot about hydrocarbons. We do have opportunities, and we would like to invite investors to invest in our domestic energy market as well. I should tell you that we are now in the process of liberalizing the market. So there will be investment opportunities in new power generation stations. As you know, being part of the EU, we have very tough renewables and energy savings targets to meet, and they will become even stricter and tougher for 2030. So there will be investment opportunities there in renewables, power generation plants, and in financing also our energy savings measures, specifically making buildings more energy efficient. We are also looking to bring natural gas to the domestic market. For those of you who are not familiar, we've had 3 failed attempts so far. We are making a final one, and this cannot fail. We are working towards an LNG solution, so there will be the need to finance a regasification terminal offshore Cyprus. It will be a floating unit, and also build the national pipeline infrastructure. So we would need investments in that department as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Please, sir.
Thank you, sir. I was wondering if the panel could comment on the prospects of the Mediterranean economies transitioning away from cash, from a cash economy, and if that would help investment and give confidence on the investment side, like from the European Investment Bank, the IMF, and the international investor community? Thank you.
Right. Would you like to Mr. Antonaros,
I think if we're talking about like
small-
e-commerce and more of the banking that's done away from on the apps, etc. I think this is something that we have done in other countries, and we would definitely support small and medium-sized companies trying to. I think we've worked with MasterCard in some countries to do this, so we would support it as long as it fits within our remit that we're there for.
Let me tell you this: we have supported. I think this is the case. We have supported, for instance, a company in Greece. It has nothing to do with Cyprus, which is active, is based in Greece and is internationally active on this particular or similar field like the one you mentioned. And we are open to suggestions because we have also the EIF, which belongs to the European Investment Bank. It's controlled by 60% by the European Investment Bank, and it specializes with different tools, different mechanisms on this kind of operations. We are always open to suggestions, and I would say sometimes risking to be misinterpreted, misunderstood, that we are inviting everybody who thinks that he or she might qualify for a support by us to come to our offices, knock at the door and ask for a meeting. We are ready to have meetings. We are calling our experts, and we can have even a teleconference or a video conference, and we can discuss very openly things like this. There are hardly any eligibility problems, I would say. And I would like also to add to what Mr. Himonas said, that we are following very carefully and with big interest the gas part of the industry, and we have been having discussions with the ministry, the authorities in Cyprus for the last 3 years. And at the same time, the last point I would like to make is that as we have made very clear to both President Anastasiadis and the relevant authorities, we are ready. We have committed ourselves to supporting and financing the reconstruction, the necessary reconstruction of parts of Cyprus if a solution to the Cyprus issue is found.
All right.
Can I just say one thing?
Please,
and that's, we are having our annual meeting in Cyprus this year. So www.ebrd.com, sign up and attend. And I think it would be very interesting.
That is going to be extremely interesting.
And yes, I think that's how important we think Cyprus is to the bank.
Right.
In May, thank you. The 9th to the 11th of May. It would be helpful if I gave you a date.
Thank you so much for having you today. I mean, it was a really great session, and thanks so much for attending this panel. And I would like to thank Olga and Nikos for the great organization of this event today. Thank you.
As my brother participates in the meeting, all the pleasure is mine now to thank all of you for participating and supporting this forum, which gave us the opportunity to highlight why Cyprus is a country attractive for business and investment. It offers stability and opportunity, and we hope that we will have the opportunity with organizing another forum next year eventually to showcase more opportunities and to strengthen the relation between US Greece and Cyprus. Again, thank you very much to all of you for your participation today, for your support. Thank you.